major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, March 19th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi, and we begin with a major change with sending our kids back to school. It comes from the CDC and involves the hotly debated issue of social distancing in class. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman with the new guidelines and its impact locally.
This is the current spacing inside one of the classrooms here. State guidelines say the desks have to be spaced at least 4 feet apart, but now the CDC says it only has to be 3 feet, so we could be seeing more desks inside classrooms.
It just means that we're continuing to think through how to be safest within a classroom environment.
Narelle Winter is the principal of Bostonia Language Academy in El Cajon, which has been open this entire school year with protocols.
Our students have done an awesome job. If a preschooler can follow through with protocols, anybody can.
The K-8 school is part of the Cajon Valley Union School District, which is one of the few districts open last year while the county was in the red tier.
We've had 11,000 students back district-wide. We've had one transmission, and it wasn't between students, it was between a student and a staff member.
The district has hired nearly 100 teachers to help space students out, and Winter says parents are telling him they want their kids back in school.
We've had a direct input from our community that they want that they need it, and that's something that obviously we know what's best for students is being with a person who cares about them.
Carter, Punto Verde.
Our teachers are wonderful. They're very passionate individuals, and they really love and care about our students.
They can log into everything.
The school is still offering online-only options, and plans are to increase in-person learning after spring break.
A primary area that parents have been expressing is that they need more school time.
The county's largest school district is planning to reopen on April 12th, and San Diego Unified plans are not changing. A district spokesperson says they are currently reviewing the new guidance. The California Department of Public Health says they are also reviewing those new CDC rules and plan to release new guidance in a couple of days. The state's previous 4-foot space distancing requirement has already been put on hold by a San Diego County Superior Court judge. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
And while some have already returned to the classroom, many students are still enrolled in virtual learning. Coming up, students share their experiences and the potential long-term effects. Today, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris met with Asian American leaders in Atlanta and offered comfort. The trip was planned before Tuesday's shootings killed 8 people, including 6 Asian women.
Is that hate and violence often hide in plain sight. It's often met with silence. That's been true throughout our history. But that has to change because our silence is complicity. We cannot be complicit.
The president is urging Congress to pass the COVID-19 Hate Crimes Act to strengthen the government's response and provide resources to communities. As KPBS reporter Max Rivlin-Nadler shows us, San Diego's Asian American and Pacific Islander community is calling on everyone to stand up to hate.
On Friday, a multiracial coalition of groups took to Waterfront Park to show solidarity in a time of anti-Asian vitriol and violence.
As we are here grieving, and we are here mourning for the lives lost, and for all who have been harmed by this racist and gender violence. We send our love and our condolences to their friends and families and to the community of Atlanta, Georgia.
There have been over 3,800 anti-Asian racist incidents, mostly against women, in just the past year.
These incidents arose as COVID-19 emerged as the Trump administration actively worked to maintain its power, going into a heated election by scapegoating immigrants and people of color using dog-whistling racist terms like the Chinese virus and Kung flu. They were and are flaming these fanned flames and increased attacks against Asians throughout the U.S. and globally.
On Thursday night, young members of the Asian American and Pacific Islander community came together in an emotional panel on combating hate and misconceptions in San Diego. The panel, convened by Rise San Diego, was planned before Tuesday's killings of 8 people in 3 separate spas in Atlanta, and focused on how the hate behind these attacks is often already out in the open.
If you see any acts of hatred or violence towards our brown and black communities, you have to say something. You have to do something. If you don't, you're complicit.
Panelists reasoned that for anti-Asian attacks to finally stop, the country must root out white supremacy, the foundation on which those attacks are based. Max Adler, KPBS News.
The Chula Vista Police Department is the first in the nation to respond to 911 calls by launching drones from anywhere in the city. Now, FAA approval allowed the department to expand the drone's range, but as KPBS reporter Jacob Ayer explains, the move has its critics.
Since 2018, Chula Vista police have been able to deploy drones as first responders for select law enforcement situations. In August 2019, the program was expanded to cover 33% of the city's area. Now, the FAA is giving them permission to expand that coverage to all of Chula Vista. It's the first police agency in the country to be able to do so. Chula Vista Police Chief Roxana Kennedy says the Drone as First Responder program helps reduce response times and keeps the community and officers safe.
These drones provide real-time information to our officers while they're in the field. The drones are up. They arrive usually prior to officers' arrival, and they're able through their cell phones or their mobile data computers to feed them live information about what's actually occurring.
Chief Kennedy says one of the main advantages of the drones is helping to de-escalate otherwise unknown situations.
Officers have the ability then to see, is this an armed individual? Is this just someone pacing in the street? Do I really need to respond into the area, or would it be better for me to stay back? Do they have a pen in their hand, or is it a knife in their hand? So it gives them that real critical information to make better decisions and be able to de-escalate situations so that everyone goes home safely.
But UC San Diego professor Lily Irani says the drones have increased surveillance of the Chula Vista population without proper community input on the program.
Of course, a camera flying in the sky takes in a lot of information beyond the information that might be targeted or publicly acceptable. The camera can look into private property. It might be able to see what's going on in people's backyards. It might be able to look into, sites of religious worship in ways that the community hasn't talked about.
To date, the Chula Vista Police Department says its DFR program has responded to over 5,400 calls for service, and the drone was the first on scene to over 2,500 incidents. All drone flights are logged, and flight data and maps are available on the police department website. Jacob Ayer, KPBS News.
Today, San Diego Mayor Todd Gloria officially reopened the bidding process for the city's utility franchises. Technically, any qualified company can bid on the right to provide electricity and gas to homes and businesses, but it's likely SDG&E will be the only bidder. Mayor Gloria set the minimum bid at $80 million. That's the same amount set by his predecessor. But he's also demanding that the winning bidder cooperate on the city's climate goals. And he's giving the city a chance to exit the deal after 10 years.
The invitation to bid that we're releasing today is the latest in our continuing efforts to create a greener San Diego. It'll help us to create a city where all communities have equitable access to environmental benefits.
Activists say the mayor's proposal still doesn't do enough to hold SDG&E accountable. Companies have until April 16th to submit their bids to the city. A fight is underway to save a unique military museum in San Diego. The Flying Leathernecks Museum at MCAS Miramar is set to close on April 1st. KPBS reporter John Carroll talked to some San Diegans doing everything they can to keep the museum open.
You could drive right by the Flying Leathernecks Museum next to Miramar Road and not even notice it. But there is so much here to notice, the only museum of its kind in the country.
This is the only museum dedicated to Marine Corps aviation. So it's a collection of around 46 iconic Marine Corps aircraft.
This is what the museum is named after, 1951's Flying Leathernecks, starring John Wayne. The museum, which sits on MCAS Miramar land, is about to fly off into the sunset unless efforts to save it succeed.
For the past 15 years, we've been trying to partner with the Marine Corps to come to a partnership with them that would allow us to take over the financial burden that the Marine Corps has with running this museum.
That burden amounts to about $460,000 a year, but it's more complicated than that. The Flying Leatherneck Aviation Foundation is the museum's operating entity, even though it's owned by the Marine Corps. For the foundation to take over the place, they'd have to pay current fair market value for the land, and for a multi-acre piece fronting on Miramar Road, it would be well into the six figures. But Aguilar says there are other roads to avoid closure, and one of San Diego's leading museums has stepped up to help.
It's complicated.
Air and Space Museum President and CEO Jim Kidrick says the museum he leads is doing everything it can to save its companion museum.
Right now, I'd like to give it a 50-50, and 50-50 is probably better than we were 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. So I think the meetings have been very, very productive.
But if nothing can be worked out, some iconic, historic aircraft will have to go elsewhere, like this old chopper called Lady Ace 09.
This is the actual aircraft that flew the American ambassador, Ambassador Martin, and the American flag out of Vietnam when we pull out of Vietnam.
A statement from the commanding officer of MCAS Miramar says, in part, some of our collection will undoubtedly stay in the San Diego area, while other items will go to museums where the marine aviation story isn't currently told. Marines take great pride and reverence in our stories and legends, and we feel this is an opportunity to share that legacy with others dedicated to history. Inside, the closure process is well underway, artifacts being put in storage or sent elsewhere for display. A final decision now rests at the Pentagon with the Commandant of the Corps. Meantime, the museum, which is free, is open this weekend, perhaps one of the last times San Diegans will be able to visit the Flying Leathernecks Aviation Museum. John Carroll, KPBS News.
A reminder now, the county's first ever vaccination superstation near Petco Park is closing for good tomorrow. The UC San Diego Health Clinic is shutting down after the last appointment Saturday to make way for the return of Padres baseball on April 1st. The county says it will open another superstation downtown at the convention center. Vaccine eligibility expanded this week, and if you want to find out if it's your turn and where to get your shot, head to kpbs.org. Just go to our homepage and then click on the Vaccines tab to find clinic locations, as well as links to make an appointment. Distance learning during the pandemic has only worsened the achievement gap between students from marginalized communities and those growing up in privilege. But could there be some long-term benefits to this experience? As part of our series Pandemic Life 1 year on, KPBS reporter Joe Hong considers COVID-19's lasting impact on the school day.
It was really like a big change because first you were in school and now you're like on a computer all day, every day, Monday through Friday.
Luis is a 7th grader currently attending Rancho Del Rey Middle School in Chula Vista. Like the vast majority of students in San Diego County, he spent the past year attending school through a computer screen. But he's also struggled with the added stress of being separated from his family for most of the year. His mother, who previously lived as an undocumented immigrant in San Diego, has lived in Tijuana since 2016. They've barely seen each other during the pandemic.
Well, I mean, not being with my mom for 6 months since like 2016 too would be hard for me because I don't have my mom next to me, like, so we can go out, go places, go shopping.
Luis has been living with family friends since September, yet even with their support, his grades have plummeted during distance learning. Luis and his guardians insist he's doing all the work, but when he turns it in, his teachers aren't counting it.
Well, right now I'm not doing too good because they're giving me F's and D's for all my work that I turn in. And they're saying that they're missing and that they're not turned in when I saw that I turned in and I turned them in.
Luis has tried for months to get his grades fixed, but with no success. Experts say his experience speaks to a huge underlying problem with distance learning. The lack of face-to-face contact between students and teachers has created in many cases a lack of trust and at least the perception that educators only care about the gradebook and not the struggles of students. Christopher Nellum is the interim executive director at Education Trust West, an education think tank based in the Bay Area. He says rebuilding personal connections needs to be the top priority when in-person learning resumes.
Sure, we have to be focused on the academics, but in order for young people to be successful, they have to feel whole and feel taken care of, and feel like the folks that they're around who they're engaging with care about them.
It's also become clear that distance learning has widened an already large achievement gap between low-income students of color and their wealthier white peers. Kate Chasen lives in Tierra Santa, less than 20 miles up the highway from Luis, but their realities during the pandemic have been worlds apart.
I don't even know what to play, honestly.
Chasen is a junior at Canyon Hills High School, formerly known as Sarah High School. School has been stressful for her, but she's maintained high grades. She's also been able to continue her cello lessons virtually.
Luckily, I've been doing okay and getting my work in, and I've had straight A's thus far.
She said she wants to study public policy in college, and she's even gotten involved in activism work raising awareness for teen mental health. She said her future goals have kept her motivated.
I know it's kind of cheesy, but like the college search. So I'm looking at really competitive schools, and you need competitive grades in order to get into those schools. So just that idea of, in order to set myself up for success in the future, I need to be successful now.
One expert says advantaged and motivated students like Kate have fared better in the virtual classroom, but only as long as they have access to technology and a stable environment. Minjuan Wang is a professor of learning design and technology at San Diego State University. She said a silver lining to the pandemic experience is that teachers have become more proficient at using technology. She sees an opportunity for them to use their new skill sets to better help struggling students even after schools reopen.
After the pandemic, some teachers might go into hybrid mode, if that's a possibility, and they would definitely reach out to students who need more help by having a Zoom session or any other online conferencing.
And while Kate has done well during distance learning, she's struggled with the social isolation and anxiety. But she's completely aware of her privilege.
And the fact that I already had a laptop going into the pandemic. My family has Wi-Fi that has good bandwidth, so 3 of us can be on a Zoom call at a time. Like, even just like my parents can come home at the end of the night, and I can be comfortable knowing that they are making enough money for us to survive.
As schools across San Diego County schedule to reopen, Kate says she and her classmates will work to make sure schools have the mental health resources to support students as they return to the classroom. Joe Hong, KPBS News.
Thank you.
And as we arrive at the 1-year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic, among those who've struggled the most are owners of small businesses. Today, we hear from Miren Algori, who runs a family childcare business in Chula Vista.
I am actually a second-generation family childcare provider. And then when I became a parent myself, I decided to open my own family childcare because I didn't want to miss the first. I didn't want to miss the first, word and first time standing on her own. It really was through the sisterhood. That's how I got my family childcare going. 100% of the families who I have the honor to serve receive subsidy. Children get older and they start either kindergarten or elementary, and it just happens that we're in the midst of a pandemic, so we had to modify and honestly at the very beginning just improvise, like, okay, so what do we have to do to support the families? We have been able to get better internet services so we can have those many devices from those young distance learners going. We have been able to, like in my case, I invested in my outdoor area to bring the classroom outdoors. These are the families that have entrusted their children under our care. These are essential workers that have continued to put food on your table. So we have to support the community, and it's never been that doubt on our side.
That story was produced by KPBS reporter Claire Tregesser and video journalist Nick McVicker. For the other business profiles we've done, go to kpbs.org/smallbusiness. Those of you hoping to take advantage of the newly increased child credit may have to wait a little while. The IRS commissioner says his agency may not be able to start paying those credits in July as set by the COVID relief law. The tax agency is swamped with the usual tax season and the $1,400 payments being sent out. The new child credit increases the amount of money taxpayers can get for kids from $2,000 to $3,000 and $3,600 for kids under 6 years old. If you live in the 79th Assembly District, Monday is the deadline to register to vote and receive a mail ballot in the special primary election. The district includes southeastern San Diego, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, as well as parts of Chula Vista, Bonita, and National City. The election is to fill the state assembly seat left open when Shirley Weber was appointed California Secretary of State. Election day is April 6th, but early voting is already underway. You can register online at sdvote.com.
The front will be bringing some moisture to the north, so we actually miss out on a cold front that's coming through our area as far as rainfall is concerned. But we do get some of the impacts into this weekend of the cool, breezy air on the backside of this. Eventually lead to a quiet start to next work week. So again, we're not looking at too much activity for tonight, other than maybe a change in the air mass slowly working its way on in. Temperatures in the 40s or 50s depending on where you are, and in some spots, Mount Laguna 39 for the low there, and San Diego 59 for your low. Will be some clouds to contend with. All right, we've already noted them. That's partly because of that front passing. Again, the front is moving overhead, but the moisture found north of LA, that's really the farthest south. We'll see some of those showers make an entrance. That's why we say dry overnight right into tomorrow morning, where you can see there's quite a few clouds to contend with for tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, the cool pattern, that takes hold. So we are going to see those temperatures fall off a bit. And also, too, we're going to have a pretty breezy setup as more of this cool air kind of comes driving into the rest of the southwest. So for tomorrow, 65 in San Diego, Chula Vista coming in at 65 as well. Borrego Springs, upper 70s. That's notably down from where we were. And that's why, again, we'll keep kind of this cooler trend into the weekend with this new air mass. Again, it starts off with some clouds tomorrow morning. That fades away into the afternoon, and we're looking brighter through a lot of the afternoon into the evening hours as we keep things cool, dry, a bit breezy towards the coast. Sunday, that cooler than average air still found around portions of the southwest, so we will be keeping the trend more in the 60s for the coast. 63 for the high on Sunday with still some extra clouds. 65 as you head into Monday, a bit brighter then. We'll be back close to 70 inland for the start of next work week, which does seem to be pretty quiet. And for the mountains, temperatures in the 40s, maybe making it to the mid 60s by Wednesday. So there could be a warm up ahead, but it's not till the middle of next week, which is when we could close in towards 80 in the desert. For KPBS News, I'm meteorologist Melissa Constanzer.
Are you ready to go to Legoland? It's about to reopen. The Carlsbad theme park will be holding park preview days April 1st through the 12th with access to select rides and attractions. The resort will officially reopen on April 15th to include the aquarium and water park. Priority access is being given to hotel guests, to pass holders, and existing ticket holders to be the first park guests in April. Limited capacity and safety guidelines still remain in place. Movie theaters are finally reopening. Several in the county are doing so just today. America's largest movie theater chain, AMC, says almost all of its locations will open up this weekend. They'll only be reopened after state and local authorities approve their plan, and they will adhere to all attendance and health guidelines. Restrictions on non-essential travel with Canada and Mexico will continue through April 21st. Miro Kopik explains the impact on local businesses along the border in the Friday Business Report.
Because so many residents either live in Mexico, come to the work in the United States, or there's a lot of vacation travel heading south, it really is important to drive precaution. By the end of April, we hopefully will have over half the population being partially vaccinated and at least 35% or more being fully vaccinated, with the goal of opening non-essential travel there at the end of April and into May importantly, tourism is critical for us here in San Diego and in Mexico. For Mexico, 17% of their GDP is tourism. That is down 55% in 2020. So they're eager for tourists. Same in San Diego. You know, San Diego, 9% of our GDP is tourism. It represents 15% of employment. So it's a big decision, but it's going to be a smart one. Even though economic growth is somewhat uneven, it's still going to, as the weather improves, expand business on both sides of the border.
Celebrated for more than 3,000 years, today is Nowruz, which is Persian New Year. It marks the beginning of spring. In celebration, the Persian Cultural Center is presenting Rastak Ensemble Persian Cultural Dance Academy. This is a free online event that is happening tonight at 8 and Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. Do you believe that they will win? The San Diego State's men's basketball team will get its chance at the big dance starting at 6:40 tonight when it takes on Syracuse in the first round of the NC2A tournament. The Aztecs are riding a 14-game winning streak, and when they win, they will play again Sunday against the winner of the West Virginia-Moorhead State game. Awesome. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marco Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.